So next up here on Clare FM's Morning Focus, we are speaking to the West Clare mother who is doing what she can to make life that little bit easier for parents that have to go to CHI in Crumlin. I'm sure many of you out there this morning have had your own experiences with it. Gillian Molohan is her name. She's a good Clamorria breaking woman, a good quilty woman, and she's with me on the line to have a little chat about a fundraising drive that she's doing at the moment, as we say. Gillian, thanks for taking the time, firstly, out of what is no doubt a very, very hectic schedule for yourself to tell us all about this. Yourself and your son Tig, you spent time in and are spending time up in Crumlin. Maybe first of all, just give us your own lived experience, I suppose, of the first day you got the news that Tig needed to face for Crumlin and how this all started.
So when I first got the news, I think Tig was 6 years of age when he first got diagnosed with scoliosis. The journey started with basically back in the maternity hospital. Tig was born in July 2011. I was sent a letter to say they had seen something. He was a preemie baby and that they had seen something on his back. I was sent from Ennis to Limerick, and then they still weren't quite sure. I suppose it was because he was so young. But when he was 4, we knew something was up. We knew we were looking for something. So we met a lovely orthopaedic consultant who's still here today, and we're still under him, Dr. Pat Kiley, privately in Blackrock. And in 2016, Pat Kiley got us into the public Children's Health Hospital because it was the best place for Tig to be for what he needed at his age. And it kicked off in 2016, really, the journey.
Okay, and it's been a journey then over the last decade or so, and I don't want to say that you'd ever get used to it, but has it become just an accepted part of how life is?
Not really, basically what happened was, unfortunately, Tig did well. Fortunately, when he was 6, we got out on his 7th birthday. He had his first surgery. So Tig would have had a condition named kyphosis. So kyphosis was the hump back. It hadn't gone into scoliosis. And that's where I first met Dr. Kiley in the hospital. I remember saying to Dr. Kiley jokingly, this is the last time I will see you. But unfortunately, nearly 9 years later, I had to meet Dr. Kiley again, and here we are, and we're a year into the journey again.
Okay, and then, it's obviously you're spending time up there. I know you can be there for good blocks at a time, essentially living out of the hospital, out of the room. Tell us what the experience of that is like, to having to spend those extended periods up there.
It's very challenging. I suppose the first thing is, it's a long way from Clare to here. And my background is that, I'm married to a farmer, and he has commitments. And, you can be very lone and isolated here. It's very alien. I still don't know how to get on the bus. I'm still trying to figure it out. But my first journey, when I first came up, it was very alien to me. I was afraid to leave the hospital. I was afraid to look left and right. I was full of fear, to be honest with you. I've got stronger as the years have gone on. I'm a bit older and I'm a bit wiser to the world, but that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. I see things changing here, and not for the better, for the worse, and it's actually heartbreaking that only down the road we can see the lights of the new hospital here and the doors are closed. That is the killer for us all.
And you mentioned there, that first experience you'd have, that there's just probably so much to adjust to, and it becomes that life that you try and get used to, I suppose, in a lot of ways. But that means then that even the smallest of tasks can often seem so big and so daunting. So that's kind of maybe the genesis of what you have started here in this fundraising drive. Will you tell me what the fundraising drive is for, and just how simplistic a thing it is that you're trying to help people with?
So I was very fortunate that, the first journey that I did, there was no parents' accommodation. We're not speaking about the Ronald MacDonald house. 2 girls set up a parents' accommodation on an old ward in Our Lady's Hospital in Crumlin. It's an extension. And it basically started off with dryers this time. Every time I come in, I listen to people. they're sitting on the wall and they need to get it out, and I'll always listen. And it's always the simple things, and it starts off with dryers being broken. And it's, pretty much began that I began to wash a girl's clothes. I'm sure it was a young mother. The clothes were 0 to 3 months, and I spent 3 days. They made it my mission to leave my child, who's 14 years of age, well capable. I'm sure he was happy to get rid of me out of the little room. And I made it my mission to try and dry those clothes. It turned out extremely hard, and I just knew it was wrong. It took me 4 days, and I just said there's only one working dryer in the whole hospital here, and that dryer was actually donated by a parent. And that's then where I got the idea. There's either going to be war over a dryer, and, parents don't need to be stressing about this when they're trying to mind their little ones, day by day.
And you've
so
had
that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, and you've had a lot of experience of that, of meeting parents that are maybe, struggling to keep things on track, and a very, very simple thing like washing their clothes can prove a big obstacle.
Absolutely, but, they started very small, and then I came to realise what else, is missing, and it is the simple things. Ice makers. I'm fortunate enough that I'm at the age and savvy enough, that I bring in my little ice cube tray to a tiny, tiny under-counter little fridge freezer. How many times I've got to hand out the ice, so, then I realised with the fundraiser, because of the kindness of everybody, I'd exceeded getting 2 dryers. So now I can gift more. This time we're struggling with fans. This is my 3rd heat wave in Crumlin since the journey started. And, fans are valuable in here. Last night was very difficult on the ward. You've children who are sick, but they're cranky and they're irritated. And it's all to do with heat. It's the simple things. Very simple things.
But what? I think what's going to strike a lot of people out there listening to that, Gillian, is just how basic a thing it is. And it's fitting maybe that you mentioned the new children's hospital, as we'll call it, although I don't know, is it new if it's never going to open? But all the money that has been siphoned into stuff like that, and here you are talking about being able to keep a little fridge freezer in the room, a dryer to dry people's clothes, and fans to keep them cool.
Yeah, very simple. An ice cube. When parents, when you offer them an ice cube, you think you've given them Christmas for their children. It's very, very sad, really.
And something as well that I was really interested in hearing you outline before was jump leads for a car. Tell us about that.
Oh, well, and I always mind my car. This is the killer. But I suppose I was a year up here, and that car was doing a bit of heavy duty for me. And look, I'm the grateful one that has a good car, I burnt my battery out twice. So went to security, went to the car park. No battery, no leads, and I would have, I'm an intelligent woman. I would have leads, but I gave them to my son who just started. That was my present to him while I left the door last year as a present, because I was fearful for him with his car. And, little did I know that I'd actually need those jump leads, and it's just a small thing. I see it all the time in the car park. I see engines running, I see windows down, I see mothers on phones, I see fathers working out of cars, and they forget that they're burning battery. And there is no battery here. Yeah. There's just no battery packs. Jump leads, very basic, but you can get very distraught very quickly. It's just another added problem that you don't need in here.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, because that's probably a new community that you've developed up there in terms of everybody, I suppose, having the same issues and trying to find ways around it. It's a GoFundMe fundraising page that's up on social media. We'll share it out as well. But maybe the reaction that you've gotten to it, Gillian, did you ever envisage that you would cover what you needed to cover? No.
I'm almost there, and within minutes, County Clare, I called my people and they... and it was very difficult to bow down and say, I need help, but it's not just for me, it's for everybody up here. Because there is a community in Crumlin. I'd be sorry to see this hospital go. And that community is, you know, your receptionist, your HCA worker, your porter, it's everybody, the cleaner, everybody. I decided I was up here. I need to make my community. I need to find my people, you know, and it's to bring back that country attitude. People need people. You know, we're very displaced up here, and it's very scary, you know, but I'm being very fortunate. There is a little strip, I call this Costa del Crumlin at the moment. And behind the hospital there is a little row of shops. And I know them all by name. I know Frank the butcher. I've spoken to him about his meat. And, you know, I know Dermot from Better Value Store, who started off as a young child and is in there 40 years. There's another man who owns a shop, and his father came from Mullock, County Clare, and his mother came from Dunbeg. Very, you know, it's just beautiful. There's a beautiful, beautiful community here. I know Andy, who gave me the leads across the road that day, you know, that finally answered. You know, I knocked on 5 doors, and I don't understand I do, but I didn't understand why they wouldn't answer the doorbell. If they don't know you, they don't answer. It's all video. But there is a community in here, you know. And, I just reached out, and they carry me, you know. It's the people on the ground, and they tell me what's going on. And it is very sad, you know, but people do need people.
Absolutely, and they need, I suppose, those basic elements as well. And just one thing that I see on the descriptor on the GoFundMe is you have this idea of assembling what you've described as practical starter packs that would include essential toiletries, laundry pods and other necessities to make people stay a little bit easier. Like it's a lovely gift to be able to give to someone, to say, here, that's to get you going, that's to just take that initial pressure off.
Yeah, it's kind of like the welcome to Crumlin. You know, you've been catapulted into here, and I'm sorry for you, but just to ease your pain. And that all started, the GoFundMe had started, and I met a lady. She had walked into A&E and had come down to my ward, and she was from Bearfield, 6 children, an absolute lady. And that was on a Friday night, and she couldn't get any family member to come up to her until Tuesday evening. And she said she had to beg to wash the clothes that she was wearing on her. And I actually went out and got her a couple of supplies, like socks, toiletries, things like that, you know, kind of sized her up. And I just handed them to her because, you know, she was a Clare woman anyway, so that helped. You know, but,
so that's always
and
a bonus.
It was lovely to meet my own. Always a bonus.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's when I realised people, I don't know anybody's financial situation. I don't know anybody's situation in here, you know. And that's not only like my toiletry pads or the toiletry things. I've started there for the mammies and the daddies. Mm-hmm. And they're little luxury packs. I see daddies coming in here with work vans into the car park for weeks and weeks. I've left here and come back, and that work van is still there. And he gets up and he does his little bit, you know, and it just, every little helps.
100%,
and Nikki and Paula up in the home, in the parents' accommodation, they're well used to them, so they know, they hear the stories, so they know who to hand them out to and who not to. So it's a good thing. It's all going in the right direction.
Fantastic. Well, it's going very well, and I hope this little plug can make it go even further. For people listening out there, help us provide working dryers for parents in CHI Crumlin, or search Gillian Molohan on GoFundMe, and you'll find the details there of how you can support, and we'll share that out as well through our social media channels if that helps too. Gillian, thanks for taking the time to have a chat with us, and the best of luck to yourself and Tig and all the crew.
Thanks a million. Just remember, it's a long way from Clare to here.
Well, hopefully the road home might be a little bit shorter, and thanks to Gillian for joining us on that. And as we say, if you can support that, please indeed do.